welcome everybody. It is the newest Red Leaf Retrocast episode 98. Cinematic platformers is the theme today. I am your host, JD, joined with Colin and Joey. How you guys doing on a nice little Sunday morning?
Doing all right.
Doing okay.
All right. Very excited.
Just had my dad's birthday celebration yesterday. Lots
Good.
of family over.
Yeah, we were, before the podcast started, we were talking about birthdays and whatnot. But this theme pick is mine today. I'm very happy. I originally went with narrative platformer, but there is a category, there's an actual genre of this. It's called cinematic platformers. Yeah, and we got four of the five here were all exactly part of that same style, and then the fifth one was kind of it's more of a camera perspective in the way it uses platforming. I guess you could say it's more 2.5D, but we'll get into that a little later. So, video games. What you guys been playing?
I've been playing a bit more of Neo: The World Ends With You.
Yeah, the sequel. How is it?
Well, so far so good. The plot hasn't really well and truly kicked into gear yet, but I'm still rediscovering a lot of the mechanics that I liked from the first game. They actually improved on them a little bit this time around. Like in this game, whenever you level up, you don't necessarily get your stats buffed up. You get a little more HP, but the real way to permanently increase your stats is to go to restaurants in Shibuya and eat their food. And depending whether the character likes a certain food or not, they might even get stat bonuses.
There's a lot of games coming out about eating food and making food and getting stats because of that. Very strange. Anime does that too a lot lately. Everything's like super emphasized on the food they're eating. It's a very weird trend that's happened the last like 5 years or so.
I haven't really noticed.
Yeah. Well, now you won't be able to not notice.
I guess so.
I did not play more Death's Door. Instead, I picked up a game called The Ascent on Steam. Yes, I played another Steam game. Look at me, Joey. No more console gaming for me.
PC Master Race.
Yeah, well, now that my PC has a working battery, all of a sudden it functions better sometimes, kind of. But
wow, who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? And, when you clean out the fan and all that stuff, it kind of is able to not overheat. And But anyways, this game kind of came out of nowhere. It's in a weird place where there's some flaws to the game for sure. However, The Ascent is a cyberpunk kind of isometric adventure game, a twin stick shooter on top of it. And this cat is so bad, he won't make a decision. He's all over the place. He's jumping off tables. He's going behind the TV. All right, it looks like he picked a spot. Maybe, kind of. But The Ascent, it's a cyberpunk thriller on top of it. It's got everything you wanted Cyberpunk 20,000 Bugs Under the Sea wanted to be. And it's, I got it for I think it's like $30 on Steam. Joey, this might be something you could be into.
Might have to check it out.
Yeah, the entire Discord community here that we've got built up, like everyone got this game and just have played it to death. And I'm like 4 hours into the game and I haven't looked back. Like just the lore of the world with corporations, and it's very cyberpunky. It's exactly what you would think a cyberpunk world would be. And there's like aliens and cyborgs and whatnot going on. And it's all just kind of part of the world. The side missions seem very... so all of the layouts and structure to the hub world that you go through, it's all interconnected and pretty seamless. And it's got a mechanic that I adore in games, especially with the way this is laid out in this isometric kind of top-down view. You click a button, and it gives you the fastest direction to where you want to go on your next mission. so I don't have to like open up a map. There isn't like this stupid Grand Theft Auto icon that every game seems to have, where it kind of sort of shows you where to go, but it's not like detailed enough to actually help you. I just played No More Heroes, and that game's map was just irritating for what I needed it to do. Beat No More Heroes, by the way. Pretty good game. Pretty good game. Very, very laggy in spots, but I'm not sure I'm going to jump right into the sequel. I'm playing the Ascent right now, and this game I highly recommend. And this is one of those rare cases where you look on Metacritic and you see it has a low score, in the 70s or mid 70s, and you're like, I don't know. This is one where I can honestly say that it's more deserving of a higher score. In fact, I wonder what the user score is. Metacritic. Bear with me here. The Ascent. Let's see.
Doesn't the user score usually show up at the same point as the critic
score?
score?
Well, I just pulled it up. Yeah, so the
page?
Metacritic score is a 73, and the user score is an 8.1, and that's I would say it's an 8.1 worthy kind of game for sure. Low 80s. The critics didn't seem to really care for this game at all. And let's see, outstanding visual. Yeah, visually it's phenomenal. Like, I'm gonna pull up some screenshots here and put them in Discord, because the amount of detail in this world is pretty sick. Like, here's just like one random one off Google. I'll kind of throw in our chat here in Discord. There you go. Joey, you still hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you.
Yeah. So there's just like one little screenshot for you. That's real gameplay that you're looking at.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's my computer isn't like high end or anything. It's like a 5-year-old laptop at this point, and I can play it on its highest settings. So it can, it runs off a potato basically. It's really quite good. Yeah, there's some bugs that you've come across. It's made by a smaller studio. Maybe the pacing's a bit slow because it has a lot of RPG elements to it. It even has co-op gameplay you can get into. There's just a lot to love about this game. And then,
nice.
Yeah, so I recommend checking it out, giving it a try. It's really come out of nowhere. We all just kind of stumbled upon it, and then everyone started loving to play it in the Red Leaf Discord that we're in. And so I said I beat No More Heroes. So that game's done and completed. Definitely a very strange game. It's very out there. Not much makes sense. And I started playing Shantae Risky's Revenge, the second game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How's that?
I mean, so I've played like all the Shantae games, but only like pieces of them all. I've beaten the first one on the Game Boy, because I have that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I have that on my 3DS just downloaded, because it's super expensive, rare Game Boy game for some reason. And I've only played like maybe an hour or two of every game after that. So I don't know why. I just was I think because of our cinematic platformer, I was in the mood for a straight up platformer.
Ah, yeah.
And Shantae definitely fits that bill. I'm like, you know what? I have all these Shantae games. I have 2 of them on my Wii U. I got 2 of them on my Switch. I gotta play one of these things and see what it thinks. And Shantae Risky's Revenge, it's definitely like a Game Boy Advance type game. And I'm not loving the layout of how the world works if I'm directly comparing to the first game, which I'm more familiar with. But it works nonetheless. It's very colorful, very responsive, very easy to just kind of figure out where you got to go. It's very quick, so I'm like halfway through the game already. It's super simple, and I like a lot of the character designs. They're very nice. Have you ever played the Shantae games?
Yeah, I played and beat the first game like like you said, and then I've also played and beaten Half Genie Hero, but I played like a tiny fragment of Risky's Revenge. None of Pirate's Curse, but I hear that's the best one.
Pirate's Curse? I heard Half Genie Hero was the best one.
I've just been hearing people say they preferred Pirate's Curse for the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, those two seem to be the best ones. Risky's Revenge it's kind of behind the times, even when it came out, but that's why it's kind of marketed as like this Game Boy Advance game, and I'm playing it on my Wii U, so it's kind of strange. But Joey, have you ever played any of these platformer games here?
Nope.
No,
I have not.
Okay.
I honestly haven't really heard of them either.
Yeah, they're by Way Forward. It's like an indie company. I think they made Shovel Knight. Did they? No, that's a Yacht Club. That's Yacht Club. The same concept though. Same type of studio.
Yeah, but I think Yacht Club puts a little more effort into their stuff.
Yeah, they have a I would agree with that. I watched both Fear Street movies. Haven't seen the third one yet. Joey, I love these movies.
Yeah, they're not bad. You don't have to pay for it. They're on Netflix, so they're really enjoyable in that sense. Like, if I had to actually pay for them going to theater, I might not have liked them, but just picking up and watching it, they're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, the Colin, have you heard of Fear Street? Besides the little bit I talked about last time?
Up till that point, no, but I'm kind of interested in seeing them now. I mean, been meaning to renew my subscription just so I can watch the new season of Castlevania, but maybe I'll do Fear Street at the same time.
Yeah, I got to get on that too as well. I haven't seen Castlevania since that first season came out. I just kind of forgot about it. But Fear Street.
Really?
Yeah, really. I'm disappointed in myself.
Kick ass.
I know. I'm disappointed in myself. Maybe I'll pick at it over the next week or so. But
I think I stopped after season 2. I have to continue watching that.
Yeah.
Season 3 wasn't that great, but I do still want to see how season 4 plays out.
Well, good. Lot to binge then. Got no problem with that. The first movie takes place in the early 90s, and it's very 90s. And it feels like it's in the 90s. All the characters are in the 90s. It's and the funny thing is, the horror genre of it all, like for the movies, at least even from the third one that I can tell, because it gave me a huge preview at the end of the second movie. The thing that does really well is it mimics the type of horror movies that were coming out during that decade. So, like, for example, Fear Street, the first one in 1994, reminds you of a lot of a kind of Nightmare on Elm Street, or, well, that's 80s.
It's very 80s, 90s type.
Yeah, because it's yeah. What would be I don't want to say Carrie. I guess you could say 80s, early 90s. Scream. There we go. Scream reminds me a lot of Scream.
Mm-hmm.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, like those kind of movies. There we go. I figured it out. And then the sequel takes place in the 70s, and it's like straight up Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's a camp-based one, which a lot of movies in the 70s were, and it's like people are fucking, people are doing drugs, far out, bro, like all those things. There's wacky, everyone's got like tribal mentality of it all. So it really fits the era of like 70s horror, 70s, early 80s, and because it takes place in the 70s. And then the third one is set in like the 1400s or whatever during this. It's basically ripping off the Salem witch trials, and it's more of like, it looks like it immediately comes across as like the Wicker Man type movie. So if we're gonna like make a reference to horror of like a way bygone era, we gotta take notes from a horror movie of just that was just really whacked out, like the Wicker Man type deal. So I can't wait to watch the third one. I watched the first two like back to back, and then I just got caught up doing other things, and maybe that's something I'll do on like a Monday night. But I love these two movies. The stories are all interconnected to the characters in the 90s, and throughout they somehow weave the story out throughout time and keep the characters you like. And this movie is not this like
trilogy of movies aren't afraid to just kill somebody, and it's fantastic. Because one thing I was afraid of is, are we going to get like the happy ending type thing where everyone lives, or, you know, like mostly everyone lives and you just get like one no, just like pretty much everyone dies and you're like, nah, fuck you. It's great. And that's what these horror movies of back then is like, just one person maybe survives and then they're all sad and scarred for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what
pretty
it
much
was.
the whole premise of the second one, because they talked to the only survivor that ever lived through this curse, and they're just trying to figure out in the 90s if they can survive, but it's kind of be like, shit, maybe we can't.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It.
Yeah, there's no stopping it. Ain't no stopping it now. It was good. It was good. I'm very happy I watched those two movies. Those are good. So that's kind of my last 2 weeks, besides drinking a lot of sake on Friday night, watching AEW and other wrestling.
The only game I played was Tribes of Midgard, which is very interesting. They marked it as an action RPG adventure game. It has a lot of roguelike.
Adventure.
It has a lot of roguelike to it, because you enter a world, and when you're in the world, whatever you get in the world just stays, and if you die, you got to start over in a new world. So there's roguelike elements that I like. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot more fun when you play with people. So, but it's something you have to figure out what you want to achieve when you enter the world, because you can try to live as long as you can, or you actually can try to kill the boss, or you can try to do other achievements. So you kind of have to be on the same page with people to be like, this is what we're doing, so let's focus on this. But it was a lot of fun. Other than that, I've been drinking. I think last weekend I went tubing. This Friday I drove to Austin to get some tattoos for Friday the 13th.
Ooh.
And that's why I didn't get home until 6 a.m. yesterday.
Oh, I see.
So, a lot of good times. Not a lot of video games, but a lot of good times.
There you go. Colin, you got anything more for us?
Not that I can think of.
No anime or whatnot chipping away at?
Well, I have been watching, with dinner every night after work, been watching Eden Zero.
Eden Zero, it sounds familiar.
It's Hiro Mashima's newest series. The guy who did Fairy Tail.
Yes. Okay.
And so far, I'm really enjoying it. I think I actually like it a little better than Fairy Tail, because it seems to incorporate some similar story beats to Fairy Tail, but also even more similar story beats to Rave Master. And I kind of preferred Rave Master over Fairy Tail to begin with, so I'm kind of glad to see that.
Let's see.
Plus, it's neat.
Keep going.
Plus, it's neat to have a main character whose superpowers are similar to that of Kat from Gravity Rush.
I'm looking for it on my anime list. Maybe it has a different name.
What's it called?
Eden Zero.
Yeah. Well, Eden's Zero. And no apostrophe.
Oh, cool. It was on Shonen. I might have access to it. I might check it out.
Oh, that's why it came out in spring. I'm in summer. That's what's happening here. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. How popular is it? That's what I'm curious about. Not very popular.
Shonen trash in space.
Yeah, it's got a pretty lower score. 25 episodes. It's about mid-table. No, lower mid-table for the spring season. Well, at least you're liking it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see where it goes. Just feels like it has more of a direction to it than Fairy Tail did.
I mean, that's not hard to do.
Plus, you're not overloaded with a fuck ton of characters right off the bat.
Yeah, I also think Fairy Tail introduced the world, but didn't really explain it too much. I wanted to know more about the world instead of just focusing solely on one person. And they're like, all these other things and these S ranks and all this awesome stuff, but we're going to do this.
And yes, there is plenty of fan service in it, but that's you kind of gotta roll with that when it comes to Hiro Mashima's stuff.
Yeah. Did you guys hear that Bleach is coming back out to finally finish the show?
Yeah, I'm actually excited about it. The final arc wasn't too bad. I mean, it's not too much different than everything else, but I kind of want to see it in anime.
Yeah, why not, right? I mean, he gets his powers back, which is kind of lame, but I guess you got to finish it somehow.
Well, I think they had that in the anime when he gets his powers back.
I recall. It's been like a decade.
He goes through that little horror thing, gets that badge or whatnot. But
yeah.
I don't know. The final arc seems interesting, and it kind of closes everything up.
All right.
I kind of stopped well and truly giving a crap back when. Not entirely sure when. I think even before the manga finished.
I can actually look at my little list here to see when I stopped watching Bleach, because I don't think I actually finished all the episodes.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. Bear with me. I'm being bad today. Yeah, it came out. Yeah, it finished in 2012. Yeah, okay. I stopped at episode 313 of 366, so I never saw that last and final thing. Oh, boy.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, pretty much after the Aizen fight in the anime, you don't really need to watch because it's all set up for the last arc anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I kind of put the stop to Bleach myself is, God, Aizen's done. All right, I guess I'm done.
Yeah, but he ain't really done.
Okay.
Seems to be the whole Naruto thing.
Well, let's get the theme started. I'm gonna play my sick Earthworm Jim music, and we can get going. God, I love that music from Earthworm Jim.
Mm-hmm.
It's like straight Sega Genesis hard way. You know what I'm talking about? Ugh.
Nice.
No, Joey. No reaction. Drink your Bloody Mary. Forget I'm here.
It's easy to do.
Boy, you're really no-selling me today. My God.
Kind of let you sit in that for a little bit.
Oh, God. Harsh. All right, cinematic platformers. My pick. I think the reason why I wanted to pick this is in modern gaming, cinematics and just over-eccentric stories is such a... It's such an... I don't want to say need, but it's such a commonality in video games where you got to feel like you're playing a movie sometimes. And a lot of the times, I think we can all agree, some games overdo it a tad. Kojima kind of comes to mind in his fucking games lately. You know, like, am I actually playing? Yeah,
I hate that.
Yeah,
like,
am I actually
don't make
playing
me
something?
Watch 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah, like the end, like Death Stranding has its charm, but fucking 2 hours of cutscene to end it, like, get fucked. Like, get out of here. Well, there was a piece of cinematics back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then over time, it became more of an emphasis with CD-ROMs when they came out because they could put more into it and put more into cutscenes and whatnot. So what was storytelling like back when it was very limited? And the first game that comes to mind for a lot of people is the original Prince of Persia game. And that is something we're going to cover, so a little spoiler there, but very important. And one of the common elements to the cinematic storytelling was this kind of screen-to-screen puzzle-solving platforming. And and they were also notoriously difficult, even though the game itself, like once you figure everything out and you can kind of get the flow of it, you can beat these games in, 1 to 2 hours if you get like super good at it. But your first time playing through the game, it's all about solving those puzzles, solving the screen-to-screen issue ahead of you, learning kind of patterns of enemies, and that takes you, 5, 6, 8 hours. It takes a bit longer. And once you and one thing we'll notice with one of these games is the cinematic platforming all of a sudden became, I don't want to say it's full action, but cameras started moving more. More emphasis on digital cinematics for cutscenes, like full movie scenes. And that's why I kind of let one of these picks slide, because I thought it was a good representation of where kind of this genre was moving towards, if that makes sense. You guys agree with this?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, with the camera stuff at least, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a different form of cinematic. So, all right, that was just kind of my, and I generally find these games super interesting because there's just not a lot of them out there in this same realm. So maybe it's a theme we could visit later with like an action platformer kind of emphasis, because that's where platformers kind of went, minus Ratchet and Clank type stuff. It's kind of like a 2.5D situation. But anyways, first game was my pick, and I picked the game Flashback. And I, of course, played the 3DO version because I had to, but there was other versions, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo versions out there. It's on a slew of consoles, but I'm sticking with the 3DO version.
I did 3DO just so I can hate it as much as I could.
Wow, I'm glad you played the version I wanted you to play. Came out in 1992. I think the latest version, I mean, it's on like your phone and shit these days. So we'll just go with 1992, developed by Delphine Software International. Published by US Gold. Sure. Hold on. US Gold. Who are these people? Okay, so they also published another game we're going to talk about here soon. Forgotten Worlds. They're some British company. What a weird name to go by US Gold. A British company named US Gold. Odd. Designer is Paul Cossette, and he sounds very familiar. He's a French designer.
Can't say I've heard of him.
So he was involved with Space Harrier and Shaq Fu, to name a couple.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So Flashback cinematic platformer. We'll get a lot of this. Similar gameplay to 1989's Prince of Persia. And another game, which we'll name later. Non-scrolling screens, nearly multiple levels of, it says altitude. It's just platforming up, down, left, and right through connected screens. And one of the big weaknesses of your main character named Conrad is he dies in one hit. And if he falls from too great a height, he will also die. Like, break his legs and he's fucked kind of situation. There's lots of enemies you have to avoid, learn their patterns. You have to figure out the best way to avoid death and running away from various obstacles and trying not to die from obstacles themselves as well. There is like this portable force field that you use as a puzzle in itself to temporarily block enemy attacks. Very useful to get a handle of. There's another game we'll talk about that has the exact same similar device. And later in the game, I don't know if you guys beat this game because the game goes... Let me pull up how long to beat here. It says it's about 6 hours. I played about 4 hours of it, and I had kind of just gotten this teleportation device where you can you basically teleport to unreachable areas that you couldn't reach before, basically. Because you end up throwing it, and then it teleports you to where you threw it, which is a really cool little mechanic that I got to. This game's hard as shit. It takes a long time to get a handle on it, and the plot is super intricate. I don't think I'm going to read this whole thing, but the point is that it's 2142, your name is Conrad, and aliens have like taken over human society, and this dude's recorded a message to himself, Total Recall style, because he has no memories, exactly like Total Recall. And it's like basically go to Mars. It's just go to Mars, just like Total Recall. And who he's supposed to meet ends up getting shot or something or another, and he has to return to Earth. And there's like this bounty hunter type guy chasing him the whole time and shooting at him, and you just don't know why. And apparently there's the whole one of the premises to win this thing called Death Tower, which is your level that you're in. And one thing leads to another, and then of course you find out all the reasons why people are trying to kill him, what's going on with society. It's pretty wild, and it's got a pretty sick ending, which opens up for a sequel, and a sequel did come out eventually called Fade to Black on the PlayStation. I haven't played that, so I can't really speak on that game at all. So that might be something worth checking out later. There's no Mother Brain, but there's Master Brain in the game. And there's Auxiliary Brain and all kinds of brains. So you can kind of put the puzzle pieces together on what this story is. How long did you guys play it for?
About 15, 20 minutes.
Ooh. I mean, you kind of get what the game is immediately.
Oh, the one thing that threw me off was the lack of music. And I know other games on the list don't have it, but this game felt way too silent that it was kind of disturbing.
Did you play a bad ROM?
Might have been.
File?
It could have been, because there was the only thing was like a low humming noise and nothing else. So it could have been my ROM, but it was disturbing and I didn't like it.
Yeah, because there's... It's... How do I put it? Like, if you played the SNES version, I think... So the SNES version's music and sound effects are pretty garbled and junk. And the CD... Like, there's no background noise, if that's what you're aiming at.
Yeah, there's no background music.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
Yeah. There's no background noise to it, but the sound effects and everything was way better.
Like a low humming, like if someone was honking their horn constantly at a car far away and you could just barely hear it. That's all I heard, and it was just it just felt disturbing, and I didn't like it, and it just ruined the game for me.
Okay, Colin.
I only played about 15 or 20 minutes myself because that's all I really had time for. But like you said, I kind of got the idea of what it was like just from playing that, and yeah, it does play similar to at least two of the games we're covering later.
Mm-hmm.
I found the controls really confusing because I had to look online just to figure out how to jump across gaps. Because you also, not only do you have to hit the action button, you also have to put a direction on the specific direction on the D-pad, and just why not just have a jump button? That made no sense to me.
Well, as we'll find out with a lot of these games, the control schemes are pretty whack.
Yeah, but this is especially whack.
Well, one thing that this game does do well that another game that we're going to talk about does not is at least the jump has an automatic grabbing the like a cliffside type deal. It does have that function, and it has kind of an automatic... Once you do get the handle on this weird control scheme for running and jumping... Because you got to remember, there was a lack of buttons also back then for a lot of these things. So they had to kind of...
Most of these games have weird mechanics and weird button combinations.
Yeah, so you gotta kind of take it for what it's worth of the time. And there's so many ports of Flashback now that are out that have fixed all that. But the 3DO actually wasn't... for once, it wasn't hindered by its weird controller.
Yeah, I was playing the SNES version.
Yeah, the SNES version is like notoriously bad.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, it's like the worst version. Like yeah, I popped on the SNES version myself, and like the sound effects sound like you're underwater, like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I even considered getting the Switch version, but I wasn't sure I wanted to actually spend money on it.
I mean, you can just like download it on your phone.
Yeah, I also found that it's a big problem that when you die, you start all the way back from the beginning of the level.
Basically, yeah, that was one thing I absolutely hated of this game. So with some of these other ones, you'll get more save states, you'll get more frequent checkpoints, but in Flashback, it really punishes you for dying, and that's kind of what takes so long throughout the process of playing. So that was kind of a big detractor. But at least it does have, at the very least, a password system. So whatever system you're playing on, you can at least get back to a little bit of it all. So I don't really know what to make of the game because it has a lot of hindrances to it, but it falls into this strange in-between where I gotta take it for the time it came out in, the cinematic. I thought the story is kind of what I'm gonna focus on a lot for a few of these games, and the story is incredibly interesting. It's like Total Recall, but in this weird world of its own. I'm gonna barely pass it, but it does have a lot of frustrations to it, and it requires a lot of patience.
I'm gonna fail it.
Okay.
I'll give it a soft pass.
All right, let's see. How much does it go for? The Quest for Identity. Let's see. You can get the Jaguar version for like $60. 3DO's cheap. It's like 15. Yeah. Sega CDs 33. Genesis is 10. Super Nintendo is 10. Yeah, pick your poison. All right. My next game was one I was very excited to play. This was the one I played easily the most. It's Oddworld, another Oddworld game. We played
oh yeah.
Yeah, we played Abe's Odyssey whatever amount of podcasts ago. Easily search it, Red Leaf Retrocast. Oddworld. It'll come up. This is Abe's Exoddus, the sequel to it.
Whoa, buddy. You got to pronounce that title correctly.
What?
It's Abe's Exoddus.
Oh, all right.
Look at the spelling.
Oh, yeah, there's two Ds. All right, get out of here. Exoddus, fine. I'll humor you. Developed by Oddworld Inhabitants, published by GT Interactive, and it came out November 98 on the PlayStation. Game Boy Color version did come out, but we won't talk about that one. This game is fucked up in its story. It's even more crazy than the first one.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So, following Abe's Odyssey, so we'll just call Abe's race. We'll call it that. His race of alien beings. And so he's escaped the farm, and now he's found like this other place where they utilize the bones of his race to make like a juice, a soda, if you will. And his race is forced to work the mines in which the corpses of his race are buried. They sew their eyes shut so they're blind, and they also like force them to drink the soda as to forcibly make them sick. And if that wasn't enough, they like put a gas in the mine to constantly make them high.
Yeah.
So Abe, so this was a question I wanted to ask you guys. How come Abe doesn't like succumb to the gas at all?
That's a good question.
Because he's slightly a different color.
Well, I suppose.
I mean, he does have mystical powers, so
He does. Yeah. Yeah, so much like the first game, you have to save various members of your race from various levels, and you have mind powers that can do some telekinesis type shit. And you go much like Flashback, you go screen to screen solving different sort of puzzles. It's less platformy than Flashback. There's no guns involved, so you don't have to worry about you shooting anything, but the enemies will have guns, and various puzzles you'll have to use different forms of Abe's race to help out with like turning levers and stuff, and just trying to save as many people as you can. And it's got a good, decent little save system to it. It has a quick save system, which is very nice. I love that. And with this crazy deep plot, like some of the mechanics in here are so wacky. So when you save one members of your race, you have like 3 options. You can apologize to them. You can slap the shit out of them. And what was the third one? It was I forget the third one. You remember the third one?
I know you can ask it to follow, you can ask it to work, you can slap it, and you can apologize. The only things I did, or you can fart on them.
Okay, so there's 4 things. Yeah, because that's a big point of the system. And what's funny is if you read the instructions to like the slapping, they'll get like depressed or mad, and then if you don't apologize, they will get suicidal.
They slapped me back a couple times.
Yeah, so it's really bleak.
Yeah, you're only supposed to slap them when you get when they're high on the laughing gas, and then they won't do anything bad back to you. They'll just be like, okay.
All right, cool. You slapped me back into sense.
But I ran into issues when you have more than one. It kept slapping the same one instead of the other one that was still high on the gas. So the other one kept getting mad at me. I'm like, no, I'm trying to slap the other guy. Just move.
Yeah, I had that issue as well. Basically, whenever there was 3 or more on the screen, I kept coming across that. Yeah, this story like absolutely blew my mind. I was like, this is super depressing and crazy, and I don't think modern times would be. I think the PC police would get a handle in this game. They'd have to change quite a few things, like the suicidal thoughts and actions. I don't think would fly in 2021.
I guess not.
Not for a main thing, but you can get away with it at indie.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, Joey, tell me what you thought.
Well, I hate interacting with the whatever the fuck the non-apes were. Were they Mudokins? Yeah. Sometimes they were just a pain in the ass to deal with. So, and you said you don't have to shoot, but if you take over one of the enemies, you can shoot the other enemies with it. So,
yeah, I mean, it's part of it. Yeah, it's part of puzzle solving. I'm like, I was more referencing Flashback where he actually had a gun with unlimited ammo.
Yeah, fair enough. So I like that mechanic, taking over the bodies. The visuals I thought was cool. Again, I didn't really like messing with the Mudokins. Got a little annoying at times, but it was pretty fun. It's very like barely a platformer. Like it's more of a puzzle than a platformer in my mind, since there's not too many difficult platform abilities you really need to do. You're pretty much just jumping over little gaps or dropping or just climbing up. There's nothing too intense with the platforming side of it.
Okay.
But overall, I liked it.
Colin?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. I mean, there's a lot more strategy involved with this than the other games. I mean, because in other games, like Flashback, you're more or less reacting to what's happening in the moment, but here, you need to plan your moves out more. And there's more emphasis on stealth. Because sometimes you got to hide in the shadows so you don't get spotted by the enemy guards.
Mm-hmm.
You also got to make sure you don't do any commands when they're in the area, because otherwise they'll spot you and shoot you. And then if you try to mind control them with like this floating orb in the area, that orb will zap you. So that puts another limit on what you can do. But yeah, that's how it was in the first game too. And this is more or less just the first game, but new and improved.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I thought just about everything critically negative that I had to say about Odyssey was fixed in Exoddus. Just a good example of the sequel giving you what you wanted and refining everything that made the original fun.
Yeah.
And it's like the same amount of time to beat it, too. It's like a 15-hour game.
And traversing the environment is fairly similar to Flashback and another game we're talking about later. Just because in some spots you have to like jump up to the ledge above you, like grab the ledge and pull yourself up. It goes pretty much the same way as Flashback does, but this game allows for a way more precision with your moves, I found.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of how you walk along the paths. There's like set positions that you can put yourself into. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah. Well, this game was basically reimagined and remade like this year. It came out. It was Soulstorm. Much like how Odyssey was remade into New and Tasty. I believe that came out on the Xbox at some point.
Yeah, it also came out on PS3, and I think it's also on PC.
Yeah, I never played that. I have Munch's Odyssey on the original Xbox.
I have it on my Switch. I haven't played it yet, but I'm interested in playing it.
Yeah, I haven't heard many good things about Soulstorm. I think they did too much with it or something or another. Pretty messed up. But I give Abe's Exoddus a very easy pass. The quick save function is incredibly helpful to making this a much easier experience.
For sure. Easy pass.
Yeah, I'm passing it.
Yeah. And the game isn't all that expensive. You can get it for like $10 on the original PlayStation. So there you go. All right. We are on to Colin's pick, the one we keep alluding to.
Yeah. My pick is Another World, also known as Out of This World, on Super Nintendo, Genesis, and several other ports. It was developed by Delphine Software, the same guys who did Flashback, for the Amiga and Atari ST ports, and it was developed by Interplay for the console versions, and published by Delphine Software, and US Gold, and Interplay, and Virgin Interactive, and a few others for the anniversary ports.
Right.
It was released on the Amiga and Atari ST in 1992, and Atari 800, Apple IIgs, MS-DOS, SNES, and Sega Genesis in 1992.
Yeah, ported to the 3DO as well.
We don't talk about that one.
Ah, come on.
No, it doesn't. Nothing on that piece of junk warrants acknowledgement of its existence.
Ah, boo.
I agree.
And it's also worth mentioning that the main designer of this game is Eric Chahi, who went on to develop Heart of Darkness as well, which plays very similarly.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one picked that game for this theme.
You already picked it in the past, remember?
Did we?
Yeah, for cinematic style.
Keep talking.
Yeah. So the premise for this game is fairly straightforward. A young scientist performs a science experiment that, as a result of a lightning strike...
episode 47.
Yep.
I picked it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So a young physicist performs a science experiment that, as a result of a lightning strike, goes wrong and zaps him into another world. Title drop. Of course, you might as well just call it Australia, since everything's trying to kill him as soon as he gets there. And that's no exaggeration. As soon as you're warped in, you're underwater, and you have to immediately swim upward because tentacles from down below will come up and try to grab you. And therefore, he must use his wits to evade his would-be killers, traverse the treacherous terrain, and find a way back home. Now, the art and animations of this game are very similar to that of Flashback. They're like very detailed, very smooth. It's especially for the time. Just sort of like primitive cell shading of sorts. And then what I like about this game is that it goes all the way with show don't tell, as in tells its entire story through visuals and music, and no dialogue or text whatsoever, and no heads up display either. And plus, it doesn't pull any punches with how graphic and unsettling some of the deaths can be. Like you get at the very beginning of the game, you could run into a couple of these slug things on the ground, and if you run on top of them, you'll see a little cutscene of one of them pulling out its sting, hitting the guy in the leg, and then the guy drops to the ground, dying of poisoning. And other times you fall down onto spikes, and other times you'll get roasted to death by steam coming out of vents. Just goes all the way with it. And if you've never played the game before, there's a lot of trial and error involved.
And that's the key word to a lot of these games is trial and error. And Another World has, I would say, the most of it, because just about every time you come to a new enemy, a new screen, a new sequence, you're gonna die. And then you figure out how to get to that next sequence and next puzzle that could probably take forever. And that's the trial and tribulation of the game, because the game itself, like once you do figure it out, let's see, I can't think it's more than like 90 minutes.
Yeah,
two and a half.
It's
like
sure.
2.5 hours is what you get it to.
Yeah.
So if you have like a save state, you'll go through it in probably half that time.
Yeah, and
yeah, for the time it came out in, this like rotoscoping style is super. I guess I'll use the word innovative.
Yeah, it's pretty advanced for the time, at least, and it's a little less punishing than Flashback as far as progression is concerned, because the game actually does have checkpoints, whereas Flashback, it's all the way back to the beginning of the level for you.
Yeah, that was one thing I would say Another World did better than Flashback. Yeah. Yeah, this game, I've beaten this game before in the past, because it's just it's like one of those weird retro games that is so well known in not just the collecting community, but just talking about weird and important video games. And this one, along with Prince of Persia, which we'll get to, are kind of like two of the innovators of a particular genre and way to tell stories in a video game. And it's really cool. It's incredibly frustrating, don't get me wrong. Like there's a sequence where you shoot out a boulder and the cave system rises with water to drown you, and if you make even the slightest error in any way, decreasing your time to get to the end, you're immediately dead. And there's zero room for error to it all, and so much of this game is like that. And that was the most frustrating sequence in this game was that cave system point. But from the way it tells the story, and you get a little friend that you make, and you're escaping this like weird alien world always coming at you. There's that cool scene where like it seems like the whole world is fighting each other, and there's shit going off in the background, and you're running in the foreground. Very cool stuff. I definitely like that, and that's what Flashback I think was missing. Was a lot of like it really told more of a sci-fi story to it all, while Another World used the environment to tell the story. And that's what Flashback was missing to me.
Yeah. And one thing I liked is that the game, for the most part, creates a real sense of isolation. I mean, sure, there are times you've got your alien friend with you, but those times are pretty much just temporary, because there will be times you're together, and then at one point you'll get separated again, and then you'll reunite, and then get separated again. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of like that. It's kind of tests your ability to deal with the isolation, at least if you're playing alone.
Right.
I just like the atmosphere it creates.
Mm-hmm. Joey?
I thought it was like Groundhog's Day, the game, because I kept dying and restarting and dying and restarting.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because I played the Super Nintendo version. I don't know if it's just this version or not, but I don't like that the kick and the sprint are the same button. So as I was trying to kick, sometimes it would run into the enemy and I would die.
Yeah,
so
when you first start playing it, it's annoying. Yeah.
So yeah, everything else about the game I liked, but I just did not like that aspect. I died to those stupid whatever slug things way too many times for stupid game mechanic not working.
The game mechanic that took me the longest to figure out and how to actually make it function was the force field that you get with the gun.
Oh, yeah.
Good God. How long do you charge the gun for? How many force fields you got to put up? How strong are they? And it's just so aggravating how much trial and error that one mechanic in the game is for the puzzles that you come across with enemies. That is super annoying. With Flashback, it was less annoying because it was always like, just put one in front of you and you're good. This was sometimes you got to put 3. Sometimes you got to put like as many as you possibly can and then recharge the gun accordingly. Just give me infinite. But it was their first try, so I'm willing to forgive. But trials and tribulations and patience is what this game is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the reasons it's so well remembered is because when you beat it, you feel really accomplished after all the
that's an understatement.
Trials and tribulations you went through.
Oh, yeah. Well, I give it a pass.
Yeah, I pass it too.
I'm on the fence, but I guess I'll give it a pass.
So this game you can get on a variety of modern consoles for like $20 or whatever. Usually it's in a pack with Flashback that you could get these days. So the Jaguar version is $120 if you're into the Atari Jaguar. But I recommend like the Super Nintendo version. Just get like a repro card or a PAL version that's like $10. So Joey, your pick.
My pick is Prince of Persia. Came out in 1989 in North America and Japan in 90. Came out on the Apple II first and then ported to pretty much everything in existence.
Yes. So what did everyone play theirs on?
I wanted to play on the regular Nintendo version, but I played on Super Nintendo and the Game Boy, as well as watch some people in different versions.
I played I played the Super Nintendo, though the Genesis one has blood, so I was very tempted.
Yeah, I played the Super Nintendo and then gave the Nintendo version a try.
Okay.
Yes, Super Nintendo one had 120 minutes, but the original only had 60 minutes to get through. Most of the versions had 12 levels, but some of them had more. So there's some slight differences. And what I thought was weird is that it was ported to the Nintendo system after it was ported to the Super Nintendo.
I believe the same went with the Master System version after it was on the Genesis already.
Master came out in 92. Genesis came out in 94.
Okay, I was incorrect then.
But yeah, like for the Super Nintendo, it came out in July 92 in Japan and November 1st.
But think about that. The Master, like the Genesis was out in 89 and they put a game on the Master System in 1992.
Yeah, and then Nintendo was a day after it got out in the US. It came out on the Nintendo system. It was November 1 and then November 2. I was like, what? Okay. And Game Boy actually beat both of them. It came out beginning of the year on the Game Boy.
Wow.
Yeah, it just seems like they randomly ported, or whoever developed it took their time, made some changes. But I don't know, this game was really fun, and I was really impressed with some of the mechanics it had. For a game made in 89, it had a lot of interesting platforming mechanics that I didn't think it would have. Like the sword fighting, you pull out your sword and it's like a little fencing match. I really enjoyed that. The falling panels and then the pressure floor things that sometimes you had to jump over or it would close the door that you were trying to get through. I don't know. I thought this game was fun. I thought it did a lot more than I thought it would be for when it came out. The story is you're just a dude that needs to save the Sultan's daughter because Jafar, who always takes over, the evil wizard.
Damn you, Jafar!
It's like if there's any in this era, a wizard named Jafar is going to take over. The Sultan's just fucked. If there's a Jafar, you're fucked. So
I would like a parody where there's like a sultan or somebody or a king, and someone just goes, "Let me introduce you to your new consigliere. His name's Jafar." Like, hold on, what? Excuse me? I'm sure he's fine. He seems like a good guy. His mustache, great stuff going on there. Goatee, not evil.
Yeah, so of course he wants the Sultan's daughter to become his wife. So then you need to travel through the levels and make it to her before she's forced into marriage and or dies. So,
slip a coin, death, marriage. Meh. Is it really all that different?
Probably not. But I don't know. I really liked it, especially like that weird mirror thing that sometimes you have to run through, and then your doppelganger jumps out. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. What you guys think of it?
So, I did a side-by-side of a lot of these games because of the difference on consoles, and Console Wars is just fun to see the differences. But I ended up sticking with the Super Nintendo version because it had more level variety. It had brighter colors. Or I'm sorry, it had the level varieties and kind of the color system in comparing to the Genesis and Super Nintendo was interesting because the Genesis focused on environment colors while the Super Nintendo chose to have a lot of the sprites and items in different colors while the backgrounds were mostly kind of the same, and then it had different effects for levels. And of course, Blood's in Genesis, not in Super Nintendo, so that's kind of the time deal. The cutscenes were very kind of more text and I can't use picture, but sprite focused in the Super Nintendo. Well, if you look at the Genesis, it had like kind of full on straight up pictures for you to notice some things. So you'll see the very, very hot princess, very attractive woman. It's like, yeah, I gotta save this girl. Hell yeah. But the Genesis also kind of lagged out a lot. So I was like, yeah, okay, this is kind of the most important thing to a cinematic platformer. So I'm going to stick...
one where you have a time limit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm going to stick with the Super Nintendo version. This sucker actually works and plays better. And this was phenomenal. And there's honestly, I've never played this before. This was a first. And
yeah, me too.
I couldn't beat it. It's definitely, it has a different level of trial and error because you're on a time limit. The game says an hour. You have like the very original like Apple II version is an hour, but they extended some levels, got some new things. So, 2 hours. Just go with it. Don't worry about it.
One thing I really liked is, I don't know if it was supposed to be metal or glass, but the glass thing that looked like teeth that chomp from the top and bottom, you can force a person that you're fighting to it and they will get killed in it.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Awesome. I really like that. Like, I didn't think that would happen. I was like, oh, they're just going to like walk through and nothing's going to happen. Then chomp, the body's cut in half. It was awesome.
Yeah, the fencing thing is kind of fun. You actually feel like a sense of urgency just trying to get through them. And what's fun is they actually kind of remade this game in, I think it's like 2008 or something on the PS3 that you can get on the store, where it's this exact game just with a facelift. That's all it is. So some of the kind of running and jumping mechanics are a little bit better, but they still kind of kept that same slidiness that the jump and landing kind of has. Another World and Flashback has kind of similar jumping mechanics to it all. Yeah, this really shocked me. There's a reason why it's called one of the greatest games of all time, because of the way the level designs are out, the story to it all. It's not overcomplicated. It's very simple. Got to save the princess. She's hot. Hell yeah, do that. You got the you got the magic mirror situation. You got this like teleportation thing eventually that you come across. It's got I thought it had a very good difficulty elevation to it all. Because with Another World and Flashback, those two games are hard from the moment you turn it on. And in Prince of Persia, I didn't get that. I felt like it had a much better learning curve to it all at the beginning, where you're just trying to, well, not fall off the side of a cliff. You learn that, oh, these platforms might fall off underneath you. Here's your first enemy, learn to joust, and then it kind of just gradually escalates from there. It's just immediately hard from screen one, where you just die a million times. That's where Prince of Persia was very much a lot better than the other ones we played.
I went blind into this, so I didn't know there was a sword at first, and I ran into an enemy without a sword. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I finally found, I'm like, oh, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Colin?
Yeah, one thing I kind of liked is that when you're on the same ground as the spikes, you can actually walk through them. So you don't die just by touching them.
Yeah, a lot of games it's just instant death upon touch.
Yeah, I wish Sonic the Hedgehog would do something like that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. That would be an interesting mechanic fix for a Sonic game, where you can kind of just run through them and use. I mean, think of like a modern example where you can get Sonic and you see his feet and legs just going crisscrossing between the spikes.
I could see a sequel to Sonic Mania doing that.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool. And I kept thinking that back in the day, a lot of immature kids would get a kick out of watching the prince humping the wall as they try to climb up ledges.
Oh yeah,
so that happened to me a lot. It's like, dude, wait till you get to the princess, okay?
Yeah, this is another example of a game getting ported to the Super Nintendo and other consoles of the era, and this really got me thinking of why the Super Nintendo is kind of regarded as the more superior console, and why it kind of, I don't want to say won the console war, but it had the edge. It's because you had games like Prince of Persia, Another World, that just kind of played better on it. And yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously exceptions to it, like Earthworm Jim. We decided Genesis was a little bit more superior, but a lot of them just ported better to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I found the controls to be nice and simple, but a bit sluggish. I mean,
yeah,
I had a lot of cheap deaths because the jump command didn't activate fast enough. And because of the fall damage or the spikes, I died a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, in order to get to the precise location you need to be in order to climb a ledge or make a jump, you have to make minuscule adjustments to your position by either ducking down or pressing up to do the straight up jump. That lets you inch forward ever so slightly. That's one thing I preferred from Oddworld. It didn't force you to go too far forward and then suddenly fall off a ledge.
Ah, gotcha, yeah.
But at least the game telegraphs the shaky floors fairly decently. I mean, you enter the room, they shake.
Yeah, they sure do.
And
let's see here.
Much like Flashback, if you die, you go all the way back to the beginning of the level. And you still lose the time you spent in the previous run through. So it's no wonder the newer Prince of Persia games implemented time reversal.
Right, yeah. I do like how Jafar puts a giant hourglass down there. It's like, you have 1 hour to decide. It's like, oh shit, okay,
yeah.
So there's the sands of time right there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
It's a giant hourglass too.
Yeah, just conjured out of nowhere. It's like, boom, there it is, bitch. Yeah, I wasn't able to beat this game. It does have a little bit of a difficulty to it in the much later levels, but I absolutely adored this game. There's a reason why it's regarded as one of the greatest games of all time. I agree wholeheartedly, especially in the context of '89. Super ahead of its time. It's regarded as the first cinematic platformer, so of course we had to play it for the podcast. I don't regret it. Easy pass.
Yeah, easy pass.
Yeah, I pass it.
Yeah, and whatever system or console you want this on, it ranges from like $5 to $20. So whatever you want it on, I would say it's worth it. And Joey, would you like to do the last game?
Sure, why not? Disney's Tarzan. Developed by Eurocom and Digital Eclipse, I guess for the Game Boy Color. Published by Disney Interactive, Sony Computer Entertainment, and Konami did Japan, I guess. Cool. Came out.
I love your reaction just reading it. It's like, oh, cool, I guess.
I didn't look at this before. I wasn't expecting to read this, but came out Game Boy Color, Windows, Nintendo 64, and PlayStation. I played the PlayStation version, and I
played the
it.
PlayStation version as well. I didn't like this either.
The camera was the worst. Like, it gave me motion sickness sometimes because the camera constantly moved. Like any little jitter the character had, the camera's like, oh, we gotta adjust, and it just it was annoying, and it felt like the view was too short that it wasn't wide enough to see the enemies, and I didn't like that the music would just stop. Like they didn't loop the music.
Nope.
It played, and if you didn't beat it in time, it just stopped, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Where did the music go? And the voice acting was terrible, at least for the kid. Like. It was like I don't want to hear him panting and grunting, and his terrible Tarzan yell was just terrible. It got a little better when he aged, but I did not like this game at all.
I did not either. I thought the idea of this era, especially so there was a lot of these Disney games during this time. You had Hercules, you had Tarzan here, you had Lion King that also came out, and what they wanted to do was basically my theory is they saw Crash Bandicoot, and they saw what would be another game. They saw Donkey Kong and Crash Bandicoot, and they went, okay, let's make that game, but both, and also make a wacky camera to give this huge cinematic feel to it all, and with crazy cutscenes straight out of the movie, basically. But let's not make it good.
Because I thought about those two games when I was playing, especially when the Stampede, I was like, this kind of reminds me of Crash Bandicoot. And then when he slams the ground to really reveal a secret, I'm like, this is straight Donkey Kong.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the camera, Joey, because it's a 2.5D side-scrolling platform game. And the thing about 2.5D is there's another game called Klonoa that also has that mechanic. There's a few others. I think Tomba is another one. And what those games did was, if it was going into 2.5D, the camera would just pan with the character and the level. What Tarzan and these Disney games did was, all the time throughout these levels, you're just going in and out, in and out, in and out, back and forth, and the camera would swish and swash with it, because it's like, we gotta be movie-like with this shit. And it's so aggravating, because then I think the best example is you're on the grind rail, if you will, the vines where you're grinding, and because the camera is swishing and swashing the way it is, you can't really tell what's in front of them. It's so close, and just trying to be super cinematic about it all, and you're just I can't avoid this vine, I can't avoid this rock, I can't slow down or lean properly. It's so aggravating, and you mix that in with the just poor sound effects, poor use of music. God, what else is bad about this? There's just so much.
I think I have the opposite opinion to you guys. I actually kind of like this one.
Okay.
But then again, this was the first game of the podcast I played, so maybe I'm just being more forgiving towards it.
Maybe. I'm less forgiving because it came out in 1999.
I've only seen the movie once, but I did enjoy it. And I'll say this right now, this is still a million times better than what we got of Disney's Tarzan and Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, well, yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, to this day, that's my most hated section in any Kingdom Hearts game, even more so than the Little Mermaid level.
Yeah, pretty junk.
Unpopular opinion, I actually didn't hate that level. But yeah, for Tarzan, I guess it works out that it never appeared in any future games. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe there was some copyright issues, but whatever. I mean, I liked the gameplay. The jumping was intuitive, and the ability to climb ledges was nice. And it also kind of reminded me of the Jungle Book. That is the video game on Genesis and Super Nintendo. But maybe that's just because it's in a jungle.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the game's fairly forgiving in that you don't lose your collectibles when you die, and you get extra lives pretty easily, and hit detection's fairly forgiving, although you can't really jump on enemies. You have to actually like throw stuff at them or stab them with a spearhead that you find in the level. And from what I can see, it's a fairly short game too. Of course, my copy kept glitching out on me at points. It was a bit of a struggle to advance through the early stages. Sometimes textures would just completely disappear. I'd find myself walking on air, or sometimes the level just plain wouldn't load. But that's a technical issue on my end. It's not the game itself. I found the vine surfing / grinding sections to be a bit of a pain because they don't telegraph the obstacles very well, and also it's hard to know where everything is on screen because of the 2.5D perspective, and whether or not you can interact with stuff. But although thankfully the game will rarely kill you if you don't know. But sometimes you just get locked into the vine surfing sections when there was one little bit behind it that you wanted to explore, but then you accidentally jumped onto the vine, and then boom, you're stuck. You're locked in.
So one thing I read about this game is if you're not into any of the collectibles or the branching paths, which, by the way, if you take the wrong path, you can't go back at all. So that was kind of annoying because so much of the game is based on all of those collectibles that you're trying to get. Supposedly you can beat this game in like 30 minutes, and that's just going through it without a second thought. And if that's the case, man, did I make a mistake? I could have beat this game 30 minutes ago. This game was easy. But I played it for like an hour. I was not impressed with the experience at all. I give it a fail personally. I think it's a little. I mean, the game goes for like $10, so I don't think I'd play or get it even for that price. I don't think it's worth it.
This was an easy fail.
Yeah.
I give it a pass.
Well, okay. The games we played for this podcast were Flashback, 3DO, Oddworld, Abes, Exoddus. You happy, Colin?
Very happy.
Okay.
I finally get my revenge for No One Lives Forever.
PlayStation, Another World on the SNES, Prince of Persia, and Disney's Tarzan, also on the PlayStation. Since it's my theme, I will go first. My favorite was Prince of Persia, just beating out Abes Exoddus. I really contemplated that for weeks. It's like, man, which one do I like more? But Prince of Persia definitely being the first of its kind and being so well at what it was doing, just it leaves an impression on me. And my least favorites, Disney's Tarzan, did not enjoy that. And my grades are gonna be Flashback. I will give a C. Oddworld, I'll give an A. Prince of Persia, I'm giving that S score. I'm going hard with that one. Let's see. Another World, I'll give a. It's a little difficult, but I'll give a B. I'll be nice. And then Disney's Tarzan, I'm giving a D.
Okay.
Colin, why don't you go next?
All right. Favorite, I'll say Oddworld.
Ooh, okay.
Least favorite, that's a tough one. Probably Flashback.
Okay.
But yeah, Flashback, I give a C. Oddworld, I give an A. Another World, B. Prince of Persia, B.
Ooh.
And Tarzan, also a B.
Wow. Okay. Joey. How about yourself?
The worst was Disney Tarzan. Terrible, terrible game. My favorite was Prince of Persia. So I'm with the same choices as you. Grades. Flashback, I'll give it a C. Even though I failed it, it was still a decent game. I just didn't like it.
Fair enough.
Oddworld's going to get a B for me. Another World's going to get a C.
Ooh.
Prince of Persia, I'll agree with an S. I can go with an S with that one.
All right.
And Disney Tarzan is a D.
Okay, so that's kind of 2 out of 3 with a lot of the grades. The biggest question seems to be Prince of Persia. 2 S's and a B. I think that just gets to an A level.
You can bump it up to an S if you want. Because between one S and one B, you get an A, and then the tiebreaker is the other S.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I'll go with that. So Flashback gets a C across the board. Oddworld gets an A. Another World gets a B. And Tarzan gets a D. So not a bad group of games from a theme that I picked with some games that were on the 3DO. I think Flashback is the best 3DO game we've ever covered with a C grade.
But it wasn't an exclusive.
It was not. It was not. Okay.
So your argument is invalid.
Yeah. Our next theme is episode 99, ever so close to 100. Colin, what is your theme pick that we're covering next time?
Curing diseases. Very timely.
Very timely. Oh boy. Yeah, I think we got some good choices there. And then Joey's got episode 100 pick, and you still haven't decided what your theme is going to be.
I threw out a theme. It seems like you ignored it. You might not like it.
Oh, I must have missed that.
I'm still deciding what I want to pick, but I've got so many choices. I'm waiting to see what everybody else says.
I think my theme will work for 100, so I'll repost it after this.
Okay. All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye now.